Oh, hey, I'm alive. I wanted to talk about Ian Taylor in the last filing that Hitler put on. Let me just make sure I'm live. I'm not sure yet. Let's just check. This is upcoming. Oh no, I'm on there. Awesome. Okay. So I don't know if you guys read Hitler, his last I'm sorry guys, I'm on my old computer. My regular computer has a battery issue. It like wants to work sometimes and then not others. So if this gets too bad, I can switch to my phone. Like I already see the camera. It's all like right up in my face. All right. So like I didn't think that was like a complete denial for the Frank's hearing. Frank's motion. I felt like it was he was saying like, yeah, this record is so large. I need your help to know where to look. Where can I find this information that you are referencing? So that's why I think I tweeted and I put on YouTube that like come on and dig deep, get these citations so that Judge Hitler has a reference so he can just quickly see exactly what you want him to see. And I thought I would go live because I feel like if we put that in the universe that we want her to do well, and there's a bunch of us that are doing it, I feel like that will help. Like, I don't know. I think it will. Yeah. And I've created what's going on here? I wanted to show you my new intro. I totally love the new song. What is this? Okay, I'm not trying to do all this. The problem with this old computer is that it has like disk space problems where it's always like at 100%, but it's okay to turn on, but the new one is not, so I don't know. Oh, what's this? Oh, T-Rev is live too. Yeah, but I'm sure he's just like, yeah, Jeff Hitler like denied the Frank's mission. I don't think that's the final thing we're gonna hear. I think he's seriously just asking Anne, tell me where I need to look. So I'm hoping that Anne and the defense team are just like working like all weekend to give Hitler all the citations he needs to quickly reference to say, okay, this is how it happened in the case. This is where in the police case file he can read that. He can read where she's doing it. So I mean, it's just like I feel like they could like use our help right now. I feel like it's totally awesome. All right, so I have a page up. I want to show you. So I'm going to present, share screen. Here we go. Let's see what happens. Should it work? Oh, not yet. Uh-oh. Here we go. Let's see. I'm going to share this page. We're not going to watch this whole thing. I just want you to see my intro. Night in the life. it's up. I can see it. I think that's so funny. Yeah, so I feel like Ann Taylor and team that they are going to be up days to get these citations in, so that when Hitler does review the Frank's motion request, that he has the right places that he can look at. Because I understand he's been handed this huge case, right? So he is probably like, oh my God, you can't expect me to go through all this case stuff. Like Hitler, he probably hasn't been following it. Like we've been following it. So he's like, all right, Anne, I need you to tell me where to look, where in the police file, where in affidavits, what dates are you concerned about? What statements are they exactly? And so what I wanted Anne to do, because I think Anne and the defense team, they're like, I don't know. I feel like they have this limitation of the gag order, but I feel like it would be very beneficial for them to just break out of that mindset and write the citations as if they're not under that constraint, to just go for it. You just got to grab all of these citations and put them in your next motion for a Frank's hearing. Like, I really think that's the way to go. And that Frank's hearing, I don't think that was a no. Like, yeah, he denied it, but like, I think Hitler kept the door open for another Frank's hearing motion. And even though he denied the motion for leave, I don't think that's a permanent no either. I think he left the door open again. And so if Anne and team can put in there why they need leave instead of just saying it, I think he's saying he'll consider it, which that's not a no. Even though these are denials, I don't know. Maybe I'm just different because there's denials in healthcare claims all the time. I'm just like, nope, that's not a real denial. But like, if I had Hitler as like a professor, I would be like, that's not a no. Like, that's him saying, this is what I need from you. And he's telling you exactly what he needs. Exactly. So you just got to give him the steps to get there. You got to give him the citations. You got to tell him, I guess, I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not sure. But I feel like you should tell him, page 5, paragraph 4. I don't know. Like you're writing a paper. Like you were in college. Like look at the different police reports. Look at what else is there? Affidavits that they wrote. Present the information you have about the dates, because this whole case has been about timing. So, Anne, show him the dates. Take off those blinders of, oh my gosh, we're under a gag order. Throw that to the side and just go for it. Like, for a second, just pretend you don't have it. Because I don't know if, like, that's hindering them. Like, even when they're writing things for the judge that are under seal that we can't see, like, I feel like, I don't know, could be hindering them too. So I don't know if they just need a little reminder. Write stuff like it's not there. Be cognizant of that. Give Hitler every little thing you want him to look at. Just put it in there. Tell him. Page 4, paragraph 8, whatever. Put it in there. Which is amazing because he did not say no, even though it was a denial. But that's not the final no. And I feel like Hitler, maybe on the death penalty, he may have, that was the final one. But actually, I do think Ann Taylor might have another argument for that, but it's just not time yet. So I feel like the things that Hitler has put out, they're not final no's. I mean, I don't know how it all works. I'm not an attorney, but I feel like that's what I would do. I'm like, that's not a no. You gotta just put some more stuff in there. I'll put all the stuff I can fit. And since he asked specifically, I need to know where you want me to look. I need to know where you want me to read. I need to know what you're referencing. You can go over that 15-page limit. I think that is like a perfect example of like, okay, because you know how the state was, they had nothing. They're coming back and they're complaining about the number of pages. All right, well, the judge just gave you an exception. Ann and team, I hope you're watching. He gave you an exception. Go for it. Write for your life. Write as if there's no gag order. Keep in mind, I don't know if the gag order has hurt or just hindered you guys in a way, but write as if it's not there. You know, I feel like they're going to be working all weekend. I hope they are. I hope they are working all weekend to give Hitler point by point where he needs to be looking. Hitler doesn't want to be reading the entire record. You know, he hasn't been following like us, so he doesn't know where to look. And that wasn't a no. He's just like, help me. Where do I look? That's amazing. Very cool. I'm excited for that. And I feel like everybody should be excited for that. I feel like we should all be like anticipating that they should put in some hours, you know, the midnight oil. And hopefully it was it Tuesday. She'll get her work back in. So awesome. I don't even know if this is working. You guys gotta tell me. Oh my god, does it say I've been live for 20 seconds? What is going on in here? No, because this says I've been live for 12 minutes. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I'm on here. Yeah, I feel like I'm on. I don't know. I feel like they need some love. They need to like, especially if they're burning the midnight oil. Like if I was her, I'd be up all night and I would be just trying to find the specific things that she wants Hitler to look at. And like only she knows where they are. I mean I uploaded a video I don't know, a few hours ago of like where I thought she could let him look. So, you know, I'm trying to do the research for her and with her. And so I just put on there all the things. So like she probably already knows those points, but oh maybe she'll see it and she'll be like, okay, these are what the jury might want to see. And so if these are the strong points, she knows the strong points better than I do. But if she's like, wow, these are the things that are resonating or could resonate with a jury, maybe she can take that for inspiration of which points that she needs to get to Hitler. So far, all I've seen from Hitler is he's very technical. And boy, does he know his case law. So he's tough, but I do feel like if the defense can make a very technical or not historical, no, not that far, but I guess with the statute, she can make it very technical, then she may have a chance. But she's got to go, like, she's been by the book the whole time, but, like, I think she's got to tighten it up a little. And, yeah, so while I was in college, I took a course called the American Legal System. And what that was a class about the birth of the U.S. legal system, which is when we were colonies. And when you came over from Great Britain or England, you either had the clothes on your back, you may have had a book, but at that time a book was a luxury item. And if you were wealthy, you may have had a chest or two. And the way that attorneys or esquires or lawyers became official is they would be in an apprenticeship and they would learn directly from an elder. But the problem was the elder may not have had all the books. And I feel like, they did have different courts. I think they had I think at one point they may have had 2 Supreme Courts. And like that didn't work, but anyway, they definitely had like a local or circuit court. There was a grand Supreme Court, but the issue was they didn't have the books to like reference their questions, or even if they were in the middle of a trial, they can't just like, hold on, I have a question, we got to send a letter, but the letter's got to go on a boat. And then it's got to sail all the way to England. And then you have to find your professor or somebody else who is in the law field. And then they have to actually look up the answer that you need while you were in the courtroom. And then they need to write a letter back, which I don't know how long letters took in colonial days. And then they would give the letter back to whoever the messenger was. The messenger would have to get back on the boat and sail back to the colonies. And so that was just really unrealistic. I feel like that could just take up a year. So I think what happened was with the American legal system is whenever they had a question, because they didn't have many books, they're like, what did the next town do? The next town over, if they had the situation, how did they roll? Or if it was the town over here, how did they roll? Oh, hi, Translucent, welcome. Very good to see you. And then, what are they called? Civil engineers? They purposely designed these cities or these counties, I guess you would say, to be a particular length apart. So when you were riding in your horse and carriage, I don't know if it was like a day's ride, I can't remember what it was, but it was all specifically planned out. So it would be a lot faster. So if you were in the middle of a court or a trial and the attorney had to reference something or the judge had to reference something and they needed to take a recess, they could send someone a lot quicker to the next town over because it was, a horse carriage away. Or I feel like I'm one of the original colonies, but we're kind of south. But I feel like there would be like a guy in New York that would have like a law library and like everybody would know about him. So they would have to like send for New York. Be like, we need to reference your books, your law books in your library. So like, but at that time, I do think that they were kind of cognizant of a speedy trial. And so I think that they were aware sending word to England was just not practical. And I think this is where our statutes came from. And our statutes. This is what Hitler was like all about, these statutes. And it was something that the American legal system has not dropped. It's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Like what would you do? Like, you got a few books. You're not trying to go too far. You're like, I gotta reference something. What do we do? Like, what did they do? What did they do? All right. So I've got information about how this trial, how that judge ruled. I would like to look at that and see how that applies to my case and how I can rule. And actually, if that's the best you have because you don't have books from England, I could completely understand why they would take that type of information or documentation rather than actually a law book from England, because they had very few when they came here. I mean, I could be really wrong, but I feel like this is what happened to us, as that's why our legal system is a little different, but it's based on the same common law that they have over in England. So, like, I don't know. Has Hitler just been reading case law forever? Miss Pottage! Aw, welcome, Miss Pottage. So good to see you, and good morning. We are talking about the birth of the American legal system. It's a class that I took while I was in college, and it was one of my favorite courses. Excuse me. And like, also, there was lots of like social things going on at the time, because I don't know if the colonies were actually like penal colonies. I think there were some prisoners who came over. And I think there was a promise of some land when you got here. So we had a wide variety of different types of people, which the social climate was very different than it was over in England. And so that also contributed to the types of laws that they were going to create and the type of legal system, the infrastructure that they wanted. And it was just a lot of trial and error. Well, no pun intended there, but like, Heather4, Criminology Chronicles. Oh, I know you as Heather4, but I'm so happy you have your YouTube channel. If you guys haven't checked out Heather4, Criminology Chronicles, amazing. She has a great YouTube channel. She has great information. I first met her as Heather4, and right in the chat right here. Oh, welcome, Heather4. Yeah, so, and I don't think that's much different from today. I do think there is a little bit of influence of what's happening, social, political, what's going on in the space. I do think. Oh, I'm so glad you're trying to get info at Heather4. That's good. So I just thought Judge Hitler didn't say no to the Franks hearing. I think he was generally asking, I need your sources. Tell me exactly where to look, because I'm not looking at this entire record. So I'm like, all right, let's have a watch party. Let's see if they're going to burn the midnight oil and get these papers done. I feel like I'm back in college. I'm like, and let's dig deep. Where did you find this information? Tell him. Give him all the stuff. He's asking for it. He didn't say no. So, like, I don't know. I feel like the more people we have that are just kind of like cognizant of like they might need some, I don't know, just like, I feel like when you put stuff in the universe, it happens. So we can put in there that like, but we're with you, Anne. We're totally there. We're totally with you. You just gotta put on paper where the stuff is so Hitler can look at it. Yeah, right. And so I think that well, because of YouTube, and that now that we're able to watch court, our social political views of the public are definitely going to start influencing how court goes, which it should have been like that the entire time. But I think they just got so used to what they're doing, and like, people can't travel all the time, and like the courtrooms just aren't big enough to hold everybody. But now that like court is on YouTube, we really do have a chance to hold the state to the fire and make sure that they do their job right the first time. 100% fingers crossed. Love it, Heather, for it. Love it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I actually think that's a good thing. Because it's needed. It's absolutely needed that we hold them to their word. We hold them to the standards that we have. And maybe because we are watching, there might be more standards created. And the one thing, I don't know if you guys haven't watched my latest video, definitely should. I found a PhD expert in bioethics and specifically IgG. And how he was explaining it, I immediately thought these DNA databases are like a slot machine. I really think these law enforcement people are addicted to gambling, because what they do is like they don't want to investigate anymore. They're like, where's the DNA? Because I want to put that in the slot machine. I got to put that in the DNA database. That's like, all right, who's going to be the lucky winner? And then the guy was like, sometimes our DNA can be like a credit score. Like we're all like kind of graded by that, depending on what they find. But the problem is they're not using logic or reason. I don't think they like the idea of secondary or transfer DNA, because that kind of gets in the way of their slot machine. So I can see why they wouldn't want to do that. And like Picca Barlow was saying, the FBI doesn't want anybody to look at the DNA database. They don't want anybody to study it, because whatever Picca Barlow was doing, her and her team, they noticed there were some anomalies that were not quite understood. And anytime you have a database, the database is always putting like, there's this criteria, there's programming into it. So they bring these things together. I forget what it's called. I did take a database course. Anyway, I work at Epic every day. So like Epic, they will flow accounts into work queues, and it has its own formula on how they push different accounts into different work queues. And I feel like that database is probably almost identical to Epic, which is very scary because it means that they have entire profiles on all of us. And, just like your account, as if you went to the doctor's office, which is terrifying. But like, so whatever database they're using and how they program that, that is going to determine what kind of info it pulls. And I think Picca Barlow and her team, or that book I was reading, The Cell, Epic is a Beast. Oh my God. I know. It's like, there's some things I don't even want to do. But yeah. So I think that's completely fascinating that Picca Barlow and her team were like, hey, I don't know. I thought it said something like they found what they consider a match, which we can't take for granted that a match is actually like a match, because we don't know the criteria which a match is a match. And since law enforcement is addicted to playing slots, I think they're going to slide on the rules about like what constitutes as a match. So, and I think that Picca Barlow and her team, I think when somebody saw DNA in there, they uploaded it. I think it was matching people who were physically too far away to have done it. Like say someone's on the East Coast and you matched it to the West Coast, and they obviously we're here. So then it's all right, we definitely need scientists to go in and study your database. But I feel like, in my opinion, police and the FBI, they're completely content with playing the slot machine DNA database game. That's all they want to do. I guess for them, it's really exciting. Okay, so Heather4 says a match isn't a match with SMPs. Okay, so Heather4, is it because that we all share a lot of things that there really isn't a match? Because we all share very close DNA, and since we all have very close DNA, it could be in a different order, because the DNA helix, they have those. It's open to interpretation, 100%. And we've been finding out lately that these DNA experts, they've been fudging the papers for years. And I do know in California, there were 2 politicians that helped get legislation filed, because a lot of these third party or these DNA companies, they like to hide behind what they call a black box. So you can't really know what their formula is to know how they're interpreting or what they're actually looking at. So in in California, they were trying to pass laws so that these companies can't hide behind that, because it's almost impossible for a defendant to defend themselves against this black box of a third-party DNA company. And I 100% agree with them. And I hope that these 2 politicians are trying to pass laws in other states, because that's just unfair if a DNA company is going to be well, we're not going to tell you our work product. Wait. No, we need to know how you came to that conclusion. But they're no, we're not telling you. It's in a black box. You can hit 40 matches at once. So, Miss Pottage, I thought the same thing, that you can't match an STR and an SMP. Yeah. So, therefore, I think you're right, because I personally think they had a partial STR sample. So when they did put it in CODIS, it matched so many people, because when you have an incomplete, it's going to match a lot of people. Yep. Translucent, I'm going to agree with that as well. Oh, William, welcome. William, yes, thank you for saying that. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. So William says, on average, any 2 humans share approximately 99.9% of their DNA, meaning that genetically we are almost identical to another. The remaining 0.1% accounts for individual variations between people. Absolutely. And William, that is the exact reason I think I can't even say Moscow PD without laughing. But I think they cherry picked this quote unquote trace DNA. And everybody thinks that okay, well, if there's trace DNA on a stat, that means someone touched it. No. Actually, No, because you need linking evidence to link them to the scene, because you don't know when the person touched anything. And even then, even if you do, are like, okay, you do believe in touch DNA is like one, and it's not secondary transfer DNA. There are people who aren't shedders. There are people where you can shake their hand or brush their shoulder, and then you're transferring their DNA. And I think was it Andrea Burkhardt who just gave an excellent example of, like, there was this experiment where you shake hands. And so you shake hands with someone who was about to, commit a crime, and they're touching a sheath or they're touching a weapon. None of their DNA gets on it, but the person that they last touched with their hand, that's the DNA that's on it. So you have to remember, we have so much DNA on our hands at one time because we are constantly touching stuff, and so is everybody else. So if you're not a shedder and you're touching, where we would grab something, which is like a sheath or a snap, if you have somebody else's DNA on there, you're going to press that where you're holding it. I don't know why people think everybody's so clean. It's only one person who touches something. It's a little messier than that. Oh, Dean. Oh, welcome, Dean. Oh, it's so good to see Dean. William, you're 100% what happened. Because, William, I think that they cherry picked this DNA quote unquote match. And IDAHO4 says this whole case depends on transferred DNA indicating presence at a crime scene, and it means no such thing. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. William also says shake someone's hand and your DNA could end up at their home. Right? You could touch a cereal box at the grocery store, put it back down, somebody else touches it, and then they go commit a crime. Your DNA's all over their hands, and they're grabbing a knife sheath and pressing it because everybody grabs stuff with their hands. If you have somebody else's trace DNA on your hands, you're pressing their DNA into it. So how do we know whose DNA is actually pressed onto stuff if you're touching stuff? And actually, I think they need to outlaw the term touch DNA. I do think that was created by a prosecutor. Actually, I read that. I know it was. It was because what a story does that tell? 2 words, touch DNA. That is a story. And it's 2 words. It's easy to understand. It's easy for a jury to digest. And it's very manipulative. And it's meant to convince a jury unnecessarily the defendant touched a key piece of evidence. When you have trace and transfer DNA, you don't really know if that's the truth or not. And Andrea Burkhardt, I think, wow, she knows a lot about DNA. I was watching her on Hella. Oh yes, Hella. She was on Hella's show. We'll have to get the link for her. I love her to death. And she recently had Andrea Burkhardt on. If you haven't watched that episode, you really need to. Tara! Oh, my girl's here. Hi, Tara. Okay, so Miss Pottage, I am slightly confused about if the IgG process was ever completed. what better thing to attack if it's not completed? Because how would you get to Brian Koberger without it being completed? And Taylor is like, she keeps asking the question, how did you get to him? How do you get his name? She's like, I read the PCA over and over and I still don't get it. So it's either the prosecution did use IgG and they're lying about it. They lied to a judge, a magistrate, to get a signature for a warrant, an arrest warrant, a warrant for AT&T, and the rest of it, the fruit of the poisonous tree. So if they're lying about it, that is fruit of the poisonous tree. But the other option is it was never completed and they don't have it. So you either did it illegally or you don't have it. Which, that's it. You either have it or you don't. And if they're behaving like this, I'm going to put my money on they don't have it. All right, Tara says, simple fact is the defense will have to explain how the DNA got there if he's not the perpetrator. Tara, you might be right because that's what the jury wants to hear now. Tara also says, note, the defense hasn't questioned the DNA on the sheath, only the IgG. Okay, so IDAHO4 says, I think they did after the arrest. Tara says, what do you mean illegally? Well, I'm not sure what that's referencing, Tara. It's probably something I said. But, so if the state did use the IgG, and that is how they got Brian's name, they told the judge that they didn't use IgG. And Judge, he wrote, oh gosh, I can't remember what document it was, but he did put in there that the state says that they didn't use IgG. Wait a minute, translucent. Translucent says apparently Brian called the tip line to inform them he was driving that night with an Elantra. Then they framed him after that. I think that's actually very true. William says, Heather, right. I think they had like 4 mouth swabs from him at the time. Yeah, I think they took a bunch. Yeah, I always thought, Brian, I feel like he's the type of person who would help people. And like, think about it, guys. We're all into true crime. So I'm always texting my friends and I'm always on Twitter talking to all of you about this very crime. How would Brian Koberger be any different? I think since he was a student and a teacher, especially in criminology, he would have heard about that because students, they definitely know things before parents and teachers. And I think people forget Brian, well, he's a student, and 2, he's the criminology teacher. Like, so if I'm a student and I think Brian's an okay person, I'm going to be like, hey, what are your thoughts on this thing? I'm like, this is like the biggest crime that's ever happened. And if it happened like 10 minutes from you, like, that's just even more reason to talk about it. So I'm a little worried that the prosecution is going to spin it. They're going to say, well, he knew stuff about it. No, I don't think Brian knew anything about it. I think he was analyzing, which is something MPD doesn't know how to do, in my opinion. And So that could be in his text messages on the phone data that maybe the MPD has. And that's another reason to suppress things, is because the police will take all the information that they gather and spin it. And so it's only fair that the defense gets to be like, okay, well, that's not true. You can't do that. So please suppress this information. And because we really do only want the fair information in front of a jury so that they can do their job fairly. Because if I was ever a juror and I felt like tricked or I didn't have enough information, like that would be terrible. Oh, chances that you just reminded me. Yeah. So anyway, I think Brian's the type of person that would contact police and be like, look, these are my skills. I'd like to help. This is the biggest thing that I've ever been to close to. Um and then I guess police thought that was weird. Like, I don't think that's weird at all. Like, if I was more outgoing, I would probably do it. Oh, and there's things like if those pings are real for the 9 a.m. on the day, why wouldn't you just go do a drive-by? Especially like if you're in true crime, you're just like go by and be like, what is going on there? So like, especially someone like Brian, I feel like he would just, because he's a driver, he would be driving at night and all the time. I feel like he would just get in his car and be like, let me see what's going on over there. But that doesn't indicate violence at all. That just means he's in his car doing stuff. Ah, Dean is right. I do think he called as well. The ride share driver. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, Heather4 says Karen Reed learned her lesson the first time for not suppressing everything, and to suppress everything and not depend on jurors to be able to see the truth. Oh yeah, Saturday Irish for girls in the house. Hello. Heather4, I completely agree with you. I think nowadays juries do not understand what circumstantial evidence is and how it's different from beyond a reasonable doubt. So, unfortunately, nowadays, yes, the less information the jury knows, apparently it's better. I mean, for one, I thought it was a good idea for them to keep the blood in the solo cups, because that's just unexcusable. If I was on that jury, I'd be like, nope, case over. They didn't do it right. You can't even test that DNA. You don't know whose DNA it is. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the way I see the social political it does affect law. And right now, juries are not really understanding what their oath is. And right now, less information for them, the better, apparently. Because otherwise, they should have seen. Okay, blood and solo cups, case over. Like the prosecutor shouldn't even take it on that case. I'm just blown away. But I guess for the average juror, you can't. Don't. So yeah, so I'm when Anne is saying that she wants to suppress all these things, she's absolutely right too. Especially if these things were not gathered or investigated properly, you want to get those suppressed because we need the jury to be able to have fair information so they can make a fair decision. And By now, we should all know Brett Payne did not see the car on video at all that night. So Brian's car is not on any video. And what supports that is that before the gag order, the police never released a picture of his car or anybody's car. They use stock photos. So they literally don't have him on camera at all. They cannot prove him being in that Elantra. And I don't even know what proof they have to say there was an Elantra even outside the house. All right, Tara's right. The average juror are prepared to give LE free passes when it comes to evidence collection. We see that time and time again. Right. David Bird. Oh, hello and welcome. I remember David Bird's name. Oh, here he goes again. David Bird says, perhaps the police watching the hit and run scene noted that BK left around 2 and returned around 5. I would not be surprised if that's true. All right. So Terry says it's up to the defense to get the evidence kept out of trial. I agree, because this is the problem when police have a blanket warrant. And apparently the police in this case had a blanket warrant with Amazon. I think Anne actually mentioned that because she was like, why do you need to know stuff from like 2009 or 2011 or whatever she said that has nothing to do with this case? And so the problem with law enforcement having more information that they need, that's more information that they can twist to fit their story. And I think as we're all learning about this is that law enforcement doesn't investigate anymore. They don't. They play the DNA slot machine, and that's it. So there's going to be a lot of wrongfully convicted, and it's terrible. And they're never going to admit that. They're going to be like, oh yeah, this DNA slot machine is great. We solve all these cases. If we didn't do it, we wouldn't solve nearly as many cases. And all the cases are the best. They're the best. No. And we don't hear about any of the bad cases. Because, like, say you didn't opt in to help police, and they do contact you because they're asking you, because with IGG, they need the paper trail, they need the marriage certificate, they need the birth certificate, because that's all together. They're paired. So if they don't have that, because that's not always on Ancestry. I don't know if any of you are on Ancestry, but sometimes you're missing that connection. So you'd have to go ask for it. So these police officers could be going and connecting with people. And what if they connect you and you didn't do Ancestry or you didn't opt in to help police, and you didn't know your father wasn't your father, and here the police come. They're like, we need to ask you questions about this person, and you're like, I didn't know who this guy is. Like, so there can be a lot of trauma around this IgG and Ancestry stuff, and so you are playing with a human like psyche when these police do this DNA slot machine. That is terrible. So it's like these ethics questions come up again. Is it better to ruin somebody's life that they never knew that their father wasn't their father? Or is it better to ruin that person's life and not do traditional police work and arrest the criminal? I feel like that's too much damage in one go. Too much. All right, we got Jetsons in the house. Hello, Jetson. He says, or Jetson says, I don't think AT has a choice. If she is asking for a Franks hearing and want the arrest thrown out, then everything must be thrown out, right? I think you're right, Judson. I think that's exactly what she's asking. Here we go. David Byrne, you bring up an excellent point. Hello, Jetson. So, a movable object is not, it should not be sufficient to say this object was present during the crime. It's not appropriate to say this person was present at the crime scene when it's a movable object because of the secondary transference that has been proven in science. And the people out there that are like, no, DNA is DNA, they're going off old science. It's old. It's outdated. Blood, sweat, saliva, semen is a different type of a bodily fluid, and the type of bodily material that we're talking about when it comes to trace and transfer DNA, it's usually dead skin cells. Dead skin cells, we're leaving them all over the place. Like, just imagine that when you're sunburned and your skin peels, that's going on at a microscopic level all the time. And people shed more than others. So your DNA could be at someone's house that you've never actually been in. And if people are grabbing things with their hands, you can have several people's DNA in your hands at any given time. So that when you reach out and you grab an object, you could put any one of those people's DNA on that object, and yours doesn't even go there because it depends on your body chemistry. Like, or if it's not your body chemistry, it's like the weather conditions. And it, like, because that affects everything as well. Oh, I am Lex. Welcome. You're right. Touch DNA is literally dust. Right. Um. Oh, Jetson, I'm so sorry to hear that. I know that stuff can be very traumatic, and I've watched a lot of videos about this these ancestry things, and they I think they call it an NPE, where it's like a non-parent event. Like, how cold is that when something happens that way? I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh, Judson says a good example would be the studies done on cruise ships that show bacteria, viruses, etc. travel throughout a space, similar to skin cell DNA. Absolutely. Tara knows. Tara gives me great DNA articles. And yeah, viruses, they travel by DNA. So it's not just our trace DNA going places. It's like common cold, it's different viruses, it's all stuff. Tara, you're great. Let's see what's going on here. All right. Yeah. So, and Tara, I don't know if you've watched. I think it was Andrea Barkart on Hella's channel. Andrea was saying that like Australia, because you gave me that. My favorite article of all time is from Australia, and Tara gave it to me, and Andrea Burkhart was also saying that in the Australian courts, they are actually debating and kind of talking through this secondary trace DNA and what that means uh, for the courts. However, in the US, that is not a conversation yet. And so the courts and juries, they don't recognize that transfer secondary trace DNA is very different than blood, sweat, saliva, and semen. And this is why this is a high likelihood of why there are a high amount of the wrongfully convicted. Tara says Australia is leading in DNA studies. Absolutely. I 100% agree. All of the DNA studies that I have read, most Sarah gave them to me. And yeah, the ones that are leading in the conversations about ethics and actually the science behind how you need that linking factor. You need that extra bit that explains how the DNA got there, and that is on the state to provide, not the defense. And so Australia, they are talking about that. They are. And it's very interesting. The article I read, I think it had a handful of judges on there, and they put in, I guess, quotes of how the judges were processing the secondary trace transfer event. And a lot of them really understood that you need a linking factor. Just because someone's DNA is found on a movable object doesn't mean that person was in contact with that object during the time of the crime. You're going to need another factor that puts that person in that area. Otherwise, that DNA it doesn't say anything. It doesn't prove anything. It can exist, but you need that extra factor, and that extra factor could be somebody is on video, or there's a car on video and the guy has the same car. Like, just, I don't know how you would do it. Or maybe if they found an object in the car from the house where the crime happened, there needs to be that linking factor. There needs to be that extra element. All right, what is chat saying here? Tara says, I'm not ignorant to DNA, right? But I know if it's brought in, it's very damaging evidence for the jury. I agree. What you will get is two opposing experts. Yeah. And it amazes me how these experts just, some of them really do get secondary trace. It's a different ballgame. It is not your blood, sweat, semen, saliva. It's science is different now, and they are discussing this now. But it's no longer, hey, your DNA was found at a crime scene, you probably did it. No, not when it comes to trace DNA. It's something new, and it does not behave like your typical blood, sweat, semen, that type of thing. It behaves completely different, and it is different. Right. Um, Judson says, is anyone else concerned about the weight we give video audio, considering the real threat of AI manipulation? And he says, Tara, do you have a recommendation? Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen these videos where like Will Smith is like inhaling spaghetti. It's disturbing, so disturbing. But like, yeah, with the invention of AI, I think it just gives police more ammo to play the DNA slot machine and then try to like get that linking evidence. And they're always trying to get that linking evidence too, because they know that helps their case. Okay, so translucent says DNA gets destroyed by brass, copper metal. They only had a partial STR profile. Then somehow they could do a full SMP profile at Ortham. Then the FBI didn't like the results, so they did a third. Yeah, I think those are all facts right there. Because there's no way. And if you watch Stephen Mercer at the DNA hearing, it's in my last video that I uploaded today. He goes over that and he says, I don't know how many. I have a Sarah D. Irish counter for how many times he says environmental trace DNA, but he also says a lot that the state tested the same sample twice. I don't think he would say that so much if it wasn't a problem. So, testing trace transfer, secondary transfer DNA twice is an issue because there should not be enough genetic material to make those tests, because usually the test when you do one of these tests, the genetic material is consumed because of the nature of trace DNA. Because again, it's not blood, sweat, or semen or saliva, which they're very much more potent in the DNA. So you can test that several times depending on how potent it actually is. But when it comes to trace, it gets destroyed because there's so little genetic material. It's so small that they have to do the PCRs, and that's how you like zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. I don't even know how many cycles they do. So like I don't know how accurate all those zoom ins are. Just listen, you're funny. All right. Um David Bird, that's brilliant. He said, two opposing experts on the DNA evidence should lead to acquittal due to the burden of proof of the state. Right. How can you prove something if it equals out? That's, and also I always think of baseball. When in baseball, if there's like a tie or something, it always goes to the runner. So anytime something happens, it should always go to the defendant. So when there is a tie there with the two experts, that should go into the defendant's favor. Whoa, translucent, you better be safe. Oh my god. um, Yeah, so I'm so happy you guys are all here. I think that if Ann Taylor and team are burning the midnight oil, that we should all just kind of think of them and just try to give them positive vibes so they can bang this one out. Get that paper out the door. Give all the cite it, and you can do it. You know where all the stuff is. So yeah, I don't know. I know I saw the news outlets and they're like, oh yeah, Hitler denied this. I'm like, no. Well, he did, but I think he left the door open. I think he left the door open on two, on the denial for leave and the denial for the Frank's hearing. I think the door's still open on both of those. He is specifically asking, you got to tell me where to look. All right, Ian, let's get it together. Tell him where to look. I mean, I know. I think that they're hindered because the defense team is probably like, oh, I'm always under a gag order. I think they need to throw that out right now. Throw it out. Think like you don't have it and then go into what you're going to do, because hopefully that gives them a new perspective and hopefully they can dig a little deeper for that. But I do think that it's a mental block. This gag order I don't think is good for the anybody, and especially defense when they are trying to defend a defendant like Brian. It's like they always have this weight over their shoulders that they have to keep balancing, and it's like I don't know if they should necessarily to do that. And I guess Ann Taylor has never asked for it to be lifted, but I think if she did, Hitler could be open to it because he wrote that, like, he was like, send in your public requests for information. And who was it? Was it Papa Rowdy who said maybe he's just waiting for all these requests to come in to see what people really want, and maybe he will unseal those. But yeah, I think Hitler's open to stuff. You just gotta tell him where to look, when to look. You gotta hold his. I know it's opposite. You think he's so intimidating. You think he's so like by the book. But really, I think maybe if you just hold his hand through the whole situation and just give him as much information to walk him through stuff, I think that could go a long way. And it seems completely opposite that you wouldn't want to do that with somebody like him. But I feel like that you can see where that goes. I can't wait for Andrea Burkhart to go over some of these things, Tara. That'd be great. Yeah. And apparently, Hitler is a big fan of statute. So he's going to put them all on their toes. And actually, I think the defense is much better at writing briefs or motions and citing their work. And also, I think Hitler asked for the case citations that are for their argument and the case citations that are against it. And it amazes me that, like, I'm sure the defense is like spread thin, but all of their stuff has been written great. Like this last one we had from the prosecution, they're worried about how many pages. Like that's all you have to say. They went over 15 pages. You're not going to deny anything they put in there when they're like accusing. Well, the preponderance of evidence, I think they're bringing that forth. And I'm very happy to see Hitler being like, all right, if you've got the preponderance of evidence, tell me where to look so I can see it too. I mean, given the situation, I feel like it's a positive one because he didn't outright say no. And I hope that they have to know that. They have to know this was not a no. And so that's exactly why I wanted like a watch party. I want to see, you know, how many references this team can get over to Blue on Tuesday. You know, and so like we can all like support him and think about him and make sure that they I know I keep equating it to like writing a paper, but motions, I feel like they gotta write term papers all the time. They're under deadlines. They're so busy. They have so many cases. Like, I don't know how they do it. Okay, so yeah, so Judson, I think that very interesting that you say that. So Judson says it's kind of funny considering the state threw all that quote unquote evidence at AT and team. And then Hitler comes back asking for specifics. Now, I know everybody's like, okay, that's a mistake, big mistake on the defense's part, and it could be, definitely could. But I almost felt like they threw it in there just to kind of like prove a point, because like the way that they responded with that motion for leave, that's exactly how like all of the prosecution motions are. So I'm wondering if they can use that to their advantage later. I'm hoping, but I have no idea. But like it was just kind of like, okay, well let's throw this in there because this is how the prosecution always does their stuff. I think Hitler is a stickler. David Bird has an excellent point. I believe this to be 100% the truth. If there was nothing there, Hitler would have denied the motion outright. He would just be like, no, we did not get to know. And like anybody who's reporting it like that, I think they need to reread the document. Like as soon as I was reading it, I was like, yes, okay, we get it. You just got to point him in the right direction so he can actually read. And I guess he's like, so Dave, you're right. For like, I'm like, if he's asking for more information, he wants more confirmation. He wants it really written down because the case law is all written down. It's all documented. So maybe he's this type of like judge who wants everything documented and clear. So if Ann Taylor can just document like an outline of all the stuff, I think that's going to go over very well. You know, I mean, I don't know what the outcome will be if Anne does get all the citations in, but I think that it's definitely worth a try. Just get it in there and burn that midnight oil with all of the defense team. It's just what needs to be done right now. And I feel like a watch party like is awesome because we can support them while we're waiting to see what they're doing. And I uploaded a video, hopefully my summary of what I think the case is helps them in any way, shape, or form, you know, so. David Berger says Hitler should be reusable. Expect page references. Yeah, you gotta hold his hand. You gotta give him like very specific directions on where the sources are. He loves that. I don't know. He loves papers and documents and information. Give him all the information. Just make sure your outline is very organized. That's it. Dean, I think you're totally right. Sky Ray, he blew the lid off of the corruption that's going on here. Yes. Oh gosh, Tonka. Welcome to Tonka. Welcome. So good to see you. Yeah. So Ant's team definitely needs to step up their game. Yep. They gotta bang out that paper, I had many nights where I had to bang something out and get it to school the next day. It's like, but we're here with you, Ann. You can do it. I read that one. Overworked would make a lot of sense. Absolutely, Judson. I don't know how the defense team is doing anything they're doing right now. Tara, I think you're 100% correct. Tara says, I think in a perfect world, this case needs 3 defense lawyers and private detectives working full time. Yep. Oh, Jetson says, yes, indeed. Long nights trying to finish papers during school. Yeah, as soon as I read his thing, I was like, oh, yeah, he's asking me for more. I'm like, yeah, I'm like taking it personally. Like, he's asking me for more information on my paper. Like, I haven't asked. I've been asked for that before, and I'd have to fine tune my paper a bit. Yeah. David Bertha's overworked, especially till Tuesday. Yeah. We might have to do another watch party because I'm all here to support them burning that midnight oil, and that's exactly what they need to be doing right now. I hope that they are. Oh God, guys, I keep yawning. You guys are funny. Okay, Justin says thesis work. The guy doing my stats work didn't get the data to me until 2 days before due. Oh my god. Those group projects, I was like, hey, if you guys want an A, you're giving me all your information. I'm putting it in a fabulous PowerPoint. I don't care what anyone says. If you want an A and you want to gamble it, fine, let someone else do it. But I was always like, give me all your stuff. And of course, there was always one person that like didn't really do it. So like I had to like do it, but I expected that. I always expected someone not to do their stuff. But yeah, that's bad. Like, well, that he didn't give it to you until 2 days before. I mean, at least he got it to you. But that's tough when you're like trying to put in these group PowerPoints in front of the professor. There was one time I was in class, we had a group project, And the teacher said, the one thing I don't want is to see a white PowerPoint, because then I feel like it's just not done, that you just threw some writing on a slide. I want to see you put some effort into it. And I had someone on my team that was like, I want to do white slide with navy blue writing. I'm like, that's the one thing she said not to do. I'm like, that's the one thing you want to do. And I was like, she just said that. I was like, I don't know. Okay, well, you think about it, but that's not what the professor wants. I'm like, what the hell? Like, did you just hear her? You can't do a white thing. I don't know. Every professor's different, so you just gotta like, all right, check. They don't want that. They don't want that. Oh, they're saying important here. Oh, we can star that. Like, I'm gonna do a white thing with navy blue letters. Come on. She just said no. So I'm like, whatever. Because she wouldn't like back down. I'm like, seriously, we're gonna get points taken off because of your white slide. I was just like, no, I wouldn't do it. I'm like, all right, you get that one slide. That's all you get. Like, you could have talked her out of the white slide. I'm like, that's the one thing she said. Like, I'm still kind of bitter about it now. I'm like, did you not hear? All right, here we go. Let's see what the chat has to say. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Oh, it's so good to see you. What truck are we talking about? Tara, you bring up a great point, because, like, the police, like, usually when you have a case like this, the news and the police always tell you, like, what the victims were doing the day before. And they give you, like, a timeline, excuse me, of, like, what they were doing. But in this case, they don't want us to know what the students were doing. Why? That is just so weird. David Bird. Oh my God. That could be. Could be. I don't know that. I have no idea, but how? Just like reading that sounds it's like terrible. Tonka says, I don't know what track. We're talking about a presumed comment Maddie made at the grub truck right before the girls left. Oh, thank you, Tonka. All right, so yeah, I'm trying to remember now, because I I know there are some creators who are like looking in the reflections, and I think one saw a truck and a red car, right? What, I don't know. Did you guys remember? I think there were several creators that saw a truck and a red car in the reflections. Yeah, so why okay, I don't know. There's a lot of people saying the girls were picked up in a red car. Tara, that's exactly what they did. And then Tara, they didn't get the results they wanted. So then they had to fix it. You know. I mean, come on, they had Brett Payne on their team. I just, no. Like, I do not put it past Brett Payne to do something that, like, doesn't benefit him. Like, I feel like he's the type of cop that has to know everything that's going in and out of his jurisdiction. So like if Pavarotti is right and there are a lot of drugs that pass through that area, I feel like Brett Payne's right there and knows all about it. Like there's no way that type of psychology is not trying to control everything around him. In my opinion, I can't see Brett Payne just, you know, staying quiet or holding his tongue or um, just letting something happen. I don't know. I see him as someone who is a doer, someone who's very active. Right. Tara says Orphanland doesn't get anywhere. It's very strange. I'm very curious to hear about the chain of custody of any of the DNA, any of it. And as much as everyone's like, yeah, the state said that they only want to use the STR and the buccal swab because they match. Okay, that doesn't mean it's going to be admitted into evidence because they're going to need chain of custody. And you know what? I'm not sure they have that. I mean, because of the reasons that you're stating, Tara, because it's very blurry, it's very sketchy about the movement, even in the state's own motions. The one in particular is the state's motion for the protective order, the IGG. When they're talking in there, it's not very clear of how the genetic information traveled. I know they don't have to be that detailed, but there is certain language that is standard for the travel of genetic information, and it just it was omitted. That it's just not there. Um, yeah, and so there the way that the prosecution wrote that, I feel like there would have been certain terms in there because they would have had a conversation with, I don't know, they may not be health personnel, but the lab people. The lab people have their own language, their own terms that they use that are very similar to health terms, but not exactly. But you can still kind of see a path of where a laboratory could use different things, and I don't see any of that. Um, which is weird, and it's very indicative of like how Bill Thompson. Oh my god, when he was at the what was it? The change of venue hearing. Bill Thompson wanted to argue all of the arguments, like even in the paper, like in his motion, and it's like, um, Thompson, you're not an expert. Like, stop. Right? So I feel like the motion for protective order from the prosecution is the same thing. It's like Bill Thompson didn't consult with anybody. He's just writing stuff. And it's like the Bill Thompson show. It's like, he just like does stuff. And it's like, Thompson, there are experts out there that are very legitimate and actually might actually go a little better with the judge if You stop arguing all the experts like positions. Let's see, what is the chat saying here? Oh, very good question, Jetson. Jetson asks, in your opinion, is that invoice valid? It's very specific, and it's not very specific. Okay, Tara says she hasn't seen anything that says the invoice is legit. And Dean says he finds it very odd. So I've seen that like receipt going around from Ortham. Was it Ortham? And it had what, 11/29 and a December date on it, and it had a panel. It was it a sit panel? And a panel is like a panel is what you would use to code your bill. So a panel is an array of services that would have been provided, and in this case, it was all the services that needed to be done for the S&P profile. And so when they put like the S&P panel, they're essentially coding for how much that service actually costs, and that service is probably a predetermined amount of things, and it's all defined in whatever the panel is. But so I'm really not sure how they bill like internally, because I feel like a police department could be billed internally because that lab is not a hospital or a physician. So like I don't know what kind of codes that they use, but I do remember they did a panel. So whoever either issued that bill, they were using healthcare terms, which that doesn't mean it's legit, but that just means that they made it look legit with that type of coding on it. All right. What is the chat saying now? Oh, okay. Jetson says that receipt was dated 11/29/22. Thank you, Jetson. Oh, that's very cool, Jetson. Apparently Ortham has. Is there a way? How did you find those Ortham bill invoices? Oh, really? Okay, so they were in the Statesman, the Idaho Statesman, the news outlet. Guys, I'm getting tired. I'm trying to burn the midnight oil like the defense. I think we're gonna have to have another watch party to like on Tuesday. Do you think we'll see it uploaded on Tuesday? Is this court docket, is the court clerk a little more on top of it than Julie Fry? Oh, okay, so the Irish. Oh, okay, yeah, I see. Here we go. Wow, this is very good. Wow. Oh. Oh. Hmm. Okay. So, um, can I put this up, Sarah? Oh, it's so good. Jeez. Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Love it. Um, that's so amazing that you guys have seen other invoices. Oh, Andrea has her live later, Tara? Did she set an alarm? Aww. All right. You guys, I'm so happy you guys came for the watch party. We're going to do it again. We need this defense team to burn that midnight oil. I love all you guys for coming here. I'm tired. I stayed as late as I can. You all have a good night, and I will see you next time. We're doing a watch party soon. Be safe, everyone. Bye. Uh-oh. I got it.